I think I've kind of reached the pinnacle state of gardening for this time of year where all there is to do is wait. The lettuce is done, the melons aren't really producing, all of the crops are done except for the onions, which are pretty well into bulbing, but we've eaten most of them. The cucumbers are starting to kind of fade out, and they're still producing. There's still quite a bit of cucumbers, but you can see where the plant's getting sad because it's so hot, and some of them are actually fairly bitter. The most exciting thing happening right now is this meat chicken, Rose, is invading the garden to eat cucumbers, even though she's not supposed to. And even with her being heavy, because she's so light compared to the other meat chickens, she keeps managing to fly over the fencing, even when I put her in the higher fence, which is really frustrating. And for some reason, the boys have decided to go ahead and put a wrist bracelet on her and give her a name, which is a big no-no in the meat chicken world. So it's just kind of a nightmare to deal with. Yeah, she's getting into all of the plants, like picking out the cucumbers. I keep putting her back, she keeps hopping back out. This is why I do ducks and not chickens. Yeah, the chicken's just being crazy. I definitely see why I switched to ducks besides the flooding the backyard. I know. I just did. Yeah, I've thrown her in both sides. She's escaping. Because she's so light compared to the other meat chickens. She can just fly. Yeah. Basically where we're at, put her in the freezer, except for he named her and gave her a bracelet. It's a mess. It's kind of hard to tell kids no sometimes. But we're to the point where we basically need to figure something out. She's a meat chicken. She was meant to feed our family, not kind of be in the garden destroying it. So all the chickens have been escaping, and they're very small. It's just, I'm reminded why we waited to get chickens and why we've had ducks for so long, because chickens were a real nightmare in the city for us. And until we really have the money to build a really good portable tractor, I just don't think chickens are for us. But with all that being said, look at these. And I don't know if you can actually hear my husband talking back and forth. There's a flea beetle on here. But look at this okra. So these are the Heavy Hitter Okra, and so far they're living up to their name. This is the second and now third pod just on this plant, and there are some pests, but it's a fairly small plant. And although this is derived for a clinless, spineless, there are definitely some spines on it. And look how easy they come on. This is a pretty good size okra, and I actually ate the first one raw the other day, which I don't eat raw okra, and I was amazed at how good it was. Look, here's one that'll be ready tomorrow, and this one has one that's ready now. Which, this amazes me for how small these plants are. So I think they're definitely living up to the name Heavy Hitter. So here's a flower that hasn't opened, and then here's the okra pod. So you can kind of see the difference. This is nice and smooth, and then these has ridges all in it. I really should be cutting these off, but they're snapping off. So this is one that'll be ready tomorrow. So there are a couple that'll be ready tomorrow. And for the plants being so small, that's really, really impressive. So you can see the little fig tree that's overtaken by grass. You can kind of tell that I've been a bit just over it, because the garden's not really producing enough to do anything with. It's in that awkward stage, and it's very hot. I'm not a summer person. I really should stick to early spring and fall gardening. But with everything going on with school and work, I'm just really losing interest in things. And I think part of it may be burnout, but part of it is just, I feel like we've outgrown a lot of the stuff we can do in the city, because it's continuing to get more and more strict. And if we had a house that was in the front of our property where we had the whole backyard to use, it would be different. But unfortunately, our house is at the back of 0.6 of an acre, 6/8 of an acre, which makes it really difficult to be able to do things in the front yard with how strict everything is and just the budget that we're on, to be honest. So this one's doing pretty well. So I think I'm just getting to the point where I'm missing my family being together and ready to kind of look for greener pastures. And it's hard not to let that affect your gardening when you're just kind of outgrowing a space, I guess. You can see some of the onions. They're also covered in grass, but a lot of the ones that were bulbed out have been used in cooking. I think in the future I'll grow a lot of onions just to use as kind of green onions. Oh, the onions smell so good. Those are the sweet yellow onions, and I actually really like them. So I'm kind of looking around. Our blackberries are producing a little more. So you can see they're still producing some, but they've really, I think they taper out kind of the end of May. And so I definitely think that getting a large amount of blackberries would be great for us because we use them so much. So that's one thing I learned that I want to invest in is more blackberry plants. But as you can see, I still have not gotten around to weeding. I've just kind of stage of things. So you can see it's very okay if you get overwhelmed with life or gardening or just need a break, because it does happen. Look at this, a squash bug breaking into this. I've kind of been frustrated with the animals lately too, because we cut down on our geese substantially. We just found that they seem to be fairly territorial for the space, and we really want them a little separated from the ducks because they've started eating the duck eggs and we don't know how to break them. So we've cut down to 3 geese, our mated pair, who are the parents of all the other ones, and then Christmas, who's just a big male goose. And while we could put him in the freezer, process him, he's very large. So that's what he's made for, but at the same time, it's gonna be a bit of a process. And I just don't know how to handle him because how big he is. And then of course he's harder to sell because he is a male goose, and people really are interested in females most of the time. It's much easier to find males. So I sold my females, my extra females, just to kind of give myself a break. I know summer's not my favorite time, and I've been just really tired lately. I think it could be my autoimmune system, but I'm just exhausted. So I think managing expectations is just a big theme of my summer, to be honest. So the strawberries are still doing really well, and I think that that's something I definitely enjoy growing and will probably continue to do so. And now it's hot, they're producing a bunch of small strawberries, kind of a bumper crop, which is really cool because seascape strawberries really don't do well in this extreme heat that we have. So that is something to consider. Honestly, I planted a bunch of strawberries, chandlers. So here's one of the chandlers right there, kind of hiding in the weeds. But I don't see as many of them as I should. And I don't know how many have died or gotten eaten or just buried in the weeds. So this one had a couple buried with it. I see baby blackberries, but I just don't see strawberries, and they probably have gotten choked out by all of these weeds. You can see there's even poison ivy growing here. And then buttercups, like, I just really haven't been doing my due diligence and cleaning up. But here's one of the Chandler strawberries that actually looks like it's doing really well. But still, there were 25 plants. What the rest of them went, I have no idea. So, look at all this crabgrass. The good thing is, this really does pull out really easily. You can kind of see. does actually pull out fairly well. It's just a matter of getting out here and doing it, I guess. And all of this gray you're seeing is actual fungi that's creating networks, like mycorrhizal fungi. Just really great for the plants. So it's not that it's extremely hard to weed, it's just that I haven't really wanted to or felt like it. You can see all of this right here. So this can be fed to the birds. Looks like there is a leftover turnip down there. Kind of sad because it's winter. I mean, it's not winter, it's getting into summer, so of course it's not growing well. And then you can see some like leftover carrots that are hidden in between all the foliage. But down here during the winter, we grew turnips and carrots, and they kind of took over all of this. And that was a really good way to utilize the space underneath these plants. But other than carrots, I just don't know. The turnips did well, but eventually they brought a lot of... Please stop putting that in the camera. He's putting the leaves in front of the lens and I cannot see anything. That's okay though. And so it just kind of, I don't know. The turnips really did. They brought a lot of ladybugs, which was really incredible to have that, but they also seem to have brought a lot of other issues too. So I'm not sure about that. The carrots seem to have the least amount of pests. I didn't really see whitefly or anything like that on them. They did really well. And this year I got like 25,000 bolero carrot seeds. So those are really good storage variety. So this fall I'm going to really focus on that. I know I can get outside without my lupus acting up during the colder months. And so that's what I'm going to do, is just kind of get out here and do stuff while it's nice and cool. So this vine, I've shown it before. I kind of let it go just to see what it would do. It's some kind of melon plant, because it did reroot after all the squash bug damage, but it's yet to really produce any fruit. Anytime fruit shows up, it doesn't even, the flower doesn't even open before it falls off. And I think it's just, I don't know. At first I thought maybe it was not warm enough. Now I was like, well, maybe it's too warm, but that's not common for melons. You know, don't blossom drop as well as much as tomatoes and things. And then a lot of my plants, like my tomatoes that I thought would be ready by now, are still small enough that I think they're going to be more for my fall garden, just trying to keep them going and get them established. And then once it starts cooling off, maybe cover them for a little bit. But I don't know. The in-between garden does make me kind of sad. Like, it used to make me excited for the next season to come, but I think it's just sad because you're putting all this effort into it for a while and not a whole lot's coming out of it. So it's just one of those seasons of waiting, and for me, waiting is the hardest season there is. It truly is. I was thinking maybe there were some cucumbers in here. Here's a couple that are pretty close, but because I don't really have enough to pickle right now or do anything, I almost don't want to pick them. But look at this. There's, where'd it go? Yeah, I can definitely see the insects. Just the amount of squash bugs are astronomical this year. I thought they were bad in previous years, but yeah, they're just awful. They really are. And these are leaf-footed bugs, which are essentially stink bugs, which we've had an issue with in the past, but I don't know. So there's one of the cucumbers. I thought they would be more bitter when they turn a yellow color, since they're supposed to be white with little black spines, which are the pricklies on a cucumber. But I'm surprised that the salt and pepper actually seems to be sweeter when it's slightly yellow. It's kind of opposite of other cucumbers that are bitter when they start to get to that season where they just turn yellow because of the heat. But I'm still kind of, you know, they're not filling out all the way, so I'm still kind of struggling to figure it out. We had a pretty good amount of rain, so I thought they would be larger and blockier, but I think maybe they're just not built for this heat, or maybe they're more designed for greenhouses. I'm not really sure. They're supposed to do both, but it is my first year growing it, and I really did love the taste of this cucumber. I'm not a big cucumber person, and the flavor was excellent. A couple were better, but it's really not that big of a deal. And so I think I'll definitely grow them again and definitely give them another chance now that I'm learning so much more about them and kind of seeing what works best and everything else for them. I think as we get more protection to extend the season, that's going to make a big difference for growing. What you're seeing down there is a baby blackberry plant, and these are kind of like all of the blackberries. They are massive. They were only supposed to be kind of bushy, but they have taken over everything. This is a 4-foot fence, and it's up high on cattle panels, and not cattle panels, on T-post, kind of like you would do cattle panels. And I mean, these plants are just taking over them, and they're growing out 12 plus feet.
Your mom, look, I'm doing it.
Yeah, I see you. So they're way larger. I could trim them back. I'm just, with the humidity and rain, I haven't really wanted to. I am kind of curious, but I think different type of trellising is going to be necessary, and maybe putting them further than 4 feet apart, because I usually like 4 feet apart works, but it seems the older they get, the bigger and faster they grow, which is impressive. Now, most of these are Arkansas Travelers, the Primark Travelers, but there are a couple of Freedom Berries in here. I don't see a ton of difference. I think the Freedom Berries, from what I've seen on other people's channels, may just be heavier producers, but I also think that one of them have a slightly larger berry than the other, because there are definitely differences between berry size. Like this one's a little smaller, and then some will have berries the size of my thumb, which is massive for a berry size. So I think that may be the big difference. And you can see they're still producing. It's just not like it was. And actually, look at this. This is a pretty large amount of blossom drop right there. So these are not actually pollinated, because if they were, they'd have nice little green berries in between them. Kind of like these. You see where they've pollinated and turned into little berries.
Yeah.
And those will swell until they start changing colors. Would you like to eat this berry?
No, Mom, no.
If one thing I've learned is I definitely need to re-look into my trellis system and give plants more space this year, because I've learned that from the grapevines, the blackberries, just kind of everything. So I think that in the future, I'm definitely going to focus on giving everything a bit more space and see how that goes. I think it's going to make a big difference. But so this is just kind of the side yard, and like I said, there's not a lot going on, but I was really, really impressed with the Clemson spineless okra and how incredibly well it's doing. And I have quite a bit of them. Only 1 or 2 did not take off well, really 1, but I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this bed. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, plus 1 over there, so 14. 14 out of the 15 did well, and that is a really good outcome, and they're already producing quite a bit of okra. And I will say, when picked smaller, about 3 to 4 inches, is the most tender okra. I can eat it raw, and it's not really slimy at all. It does have a little bit of texture, but it's not slimy like a lot of okra. So I think this Heavy Hitter is going to be one of my absolute favorites. It's not as spiny as other varieties, because it does come from that Clemson spineless variety, but it still does have some spine. So I would recommend, especially as they get bigger. And I know they'll say, oh, these average a certain feet, but I'm telling you, especially in Southeast Texas, those okra will shoot up to 8 feet before you know it, and it'll be like a forest of okra. So I definitely think that spacing them out a little more and wearing some long sleeve shirts when you harvest will do wonders. Maybe some gloves. But I'm really excited for that. That's honestly the thing that's keeping me going the most right now, is the okra. For a while it was the blackberries, and the cucumbers are producing enough for us to make like a jar or two of fridge pickles, but not really enough to do anything crazy. I didn't realize just how many cucumbers we really needed for our family, because I wasn't expecting for them to do so well, like taste so good. This is definitely my favorite variety. It's the Johnny's salt and pepper variety. It's supposed to be a white cucumber with black spines on it, but as you can see, some of them definitely get yellow, and those seem to actually have an improvement in taste. So we'll see what happens with these. I might try to grow them as it cools down in fall. I know fall's not really a time we think of for cucumbers, but because in September it's still in the 80s and 90s, and that often sticks around until well into late October, I think that we could actually get a pretty good harvest of cucumbers for pickling if I play my cards right. But I can't wait to show you what happens with the rest of this, because I actually have quite a bit of plants in the grow room to get out here and get planted and started. And those range from the roselle hibiscus plants down to tomatoes. So I know it's not going to be an exciting summer, and my videos have been pretty sporadic lately, down to about 1 a week versus doing 5 or 6 a week. But we're just in that period of time where there's not a lot going on, and I just don't really like coming outside to video something you've seen that's not doing anything extra. These videos also really do help me kind of keep track of everything going on in the garden, maybe some encouragement for future seasons. But I can tell you right now, I'm just kind of a little overwhelmed with summer, but I'm really looking forward to that fall garden, and I know it's gonna come along. I know we're gonna be able to put a little more into it, both financially and physically, because it won't be as hot outside. So thank you guys for kind of bearing with me during this season of just kind of recovery for me. It really is. I never thought that summer would be my off season from gardening, but I think it really is.